Hi there, and welcome to this Thought for the Day for Friday. Wonder whether you ever wonder what Jesus was about when he told some of his stories. I mean, was he really saying that God was like an unjust judge, or like a tyrannical ruler, or like a master who beat up his servants? Or again, what was he saying when he commended and suggested we should be like a dishonest manager who defrauded his employer in order to feather his own nest? Our reading this morning is from Luke chapter 12, verse 41. Peter asked, "Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone?" The Lord answered, "Who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. I tell you the truth, he'll put him in charge of all his possessions. But supposing the servant says to himself, 'My master's taking a long time in coming,' and he then begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come at a day when he doesn't expect him, and at an hour he's not aware of, and he'll cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. That servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who's been given much, much will be demanded, and from the one who's been entrusted with much, much more will be asked." So what's Jesus saying? Is he saying that God is a master who cuts his servants to bits if they don't want to do what they should? Is he saying that he's a master who beats up his servants? We're at a time when we're actually having trouble in working out a right sense of perspective on things in the past, where values were so different and where people thought it acceptable and the social norm was to behave in a quite different way to the way in which we do today. In Jesus' day, things were very different. It was a day of slavery where a slave could be summarily executed by his master, and that was fine. In a world where things were taken for granted, where justice could be harsh and physical punishment was the norm. So people would look at Jesus' stories in quite a different way to the way in which we do today. But still, it's not easy to work out what Jesus was saying always. Jesus was immensely popular and he drew the crowds because of the stories that he told. People listened and they were intrigued. They were stories that made you think, that stories that you had to work at to get the point. To get the point of these stories that we've just read, we perhaps look at the last verse. From everyone who's been given much, much will be demanded, and from the one who's been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. We live in an amazingly privileged situation. Here we live in leafy Hampshire. Many of us comparatively well off, certainly in world terms. We probably have a lot more than the average number of university degrees, and we've all had an education. And many people have great talents. People have responsible jobs. People have the opportunity to have an influence on the world in which we live, which is beyond that perhaps of many. But you'll remember the parable of the talents and the responsibility that Jesus spoke about for those who have talents, even only one talent. And so, as we begin this day, perhaps we could reflect on the way in which we use the gifts and abilities that God's given us, the things that He's made us responsible for. From those who've given much, much will be required. Have a great day.